In a case where basically all of the points where there are differences will be all the investigations. We collect those kind of almost as point values. We can basically have to manually go in and see, it might have been a conflation problem, or alternatively that could have been, it might be true differences in the data, which might turn into artifacts of work that we then need to go improve OSM, or update our modeling or something of the sort. This talk actually covers a whole bit of that. So in the notion of time, I'm going to jump right into this one. I think this has been retitled a little bit from the program, the road to success. So as Bogdana was kind of covering, there's plenty of work we're doing in Australia, but this being State of the Map US, I figured it made sense to talk a little bit about work in the US. This is on our radar, and we are starting to peak more time and more of our efforts toward this. I wanted to give a bit of a deeper dive into how we go about planning a big project like that, how to handle a large challenge like the U.S. road network in OSM. So what's the goal? Okay, this is a joke. Done is not something where I don't think we're ever going to see, but what we can do is make OSM ready. Now, of course, everybody uses OSM for all sorts of different things. So everybody is probably going to come up with their own definition of ready. Ours is serving our consumers. We want to power Microsoft customers, Microsoft platforms with open data. And that means that it needs to meet kind of those high degrees of requirements. So in the case of roads, some of the top ones to kind of look into for problem spaces is around routing and rendering scenarios. And there's a whole laundry list of problems up there, and it's probably not the whole thing that we ever have to deal with or dig into. But I will jump into a few kind of slightly more discrete, if not hyperbolic, examples to kind of illustrate the problem and why this is potentially stopping points for us and a large amount of work we need to do. Road classification. Before and after, if these look pretty similar, it took me a while to kind of zone in on this, but one of these is in fact quite different. I think this is just OSM styling, but the difference between a trunk or a motorway or an arterial or a highway, this can make a lot of difference when you start, one, not only rendering it, but then trying to route on it. Let's jump into a map and see, if we want to go from A to B in a well-modeled scenario. Let's suppose this is about 8 minutes on the highway, maybe 16 kilometers, something like that. But if the classifications are wrong, you jam this into a routing engine, you might get something like this. Jump off the highway early, get off, go through somebody's backyard. And if the classifications are wrong, you can come to this because it's actually less kilometers. And if you're judging on those, what you assume to be good classifications, well, it's probably faster. Realistically, you're taking even longer, and you are going through people's backyards. Another big one is, signposts. If you want to do, discrete routing scenarios, you want to do kind of those turn-by-turn experiences that a lot of people, expect. There's a lot of data, and a lot of it actually comes from signposts. If you're driving, I'm sure a lot of you do around here, you want a certain amount of association. There's an expectation that what you're told is what you see on the road. Here's this particular sign. This is I tried to get a Minneapolis example. This is not too far away, I believe. This is where it is in OSM. And you know what? Exit 158. If your router tells you to take exit 158, that's not too bad. If it's in OSM, that's great. But how many of them are not? Maybe we can algorithmically go through all the off ramps and kind of infer some of them and do a little bit of curation on top. It's a little better. What about, towards County Road 75? A little trickier, but still extremely useful. You want to know which sign and not just keep hearing, turn left. But County Road 75 is over there. Maybe we can do a little magic to infer that as well. But the real hard part, the real legwork comes into St. Cloud. That's not anywhere. That has to be put in there. That has to be adequately modeled if we need to meet scenarios. This is one of many of the discrete scenarios so that we can get that good discrete step that says take exit 158 for County Road 75 towards St. Cloud across every highway. And this is not only a highway problem, this is in cities, this is all over the place. And this is just part of roads. So I'm not going to go into all of those. Suffice to say, this is a big problem and we are not necessarily the biggest team. We are a few dozen editors. We are remote editors. So we need to kind of be smart and be very tactical about how we approach this to get kind of the most throughput, but also get good impact. So what we have done, our approach is to kind of split this into what I've started calling work streams. Take one of these distinct problems, something like signposts, something like just turn restrictions or missing roads, and dig right into that. So first we have this problem space that is one of these distinct problems. And then we'll start running data analysis on this. This includes things like Bogdana's presentation, diving into, matching differences between what's in OSM versus what's in other available, open data sets. Or just, statistical analysis, contrasting with maybe any mine signals we might have. This ultimately, as you kind of asked, what do you do with these differences? This is a set of potentially known issues. It's not to say that they are necessarily wrong, but it's something that we will have to look into. From that, there's a lot of them, so we have to split them up into something bite-sized. That we might prioritize this by location, by amount of use that this data might actually see, what kind of resources there are to even work with this. And this could be further subdivided. An example would be not trying to tackle this, let's just do the US, more splitting it down by county, by sub-county, focusing into certain cities, certain neighborhoods, to kind of focus in and kind of call an area, at least within that work stream, closer to done, because this will turn into tasks. In some cases, these might be engineering tasks, where we have to, modify our modeling. Maybe OSM really is right, and we're wrong. That happens. But in a lot of cases, we need to go in. We need to either do the work ourselves or make these things known so that other community mappers can do this. Particularly in those scenarios where, as a remote team, we may not have enough information to take action. Of course, there's some QC on that. If anybody has seen presentations on our workflows in the past, the really quick version is we have a 3-stage editorial process. Our edits get cached temporarily on our servers. We have a validator look at them, and then we have one more person validate, make sure that it's good, that there's no conflicts during that time as well, and then we publish into OSM. So those are commits to OSM, and then we get a slightly more better OSM throughout all these work streams. All of this is iterated upon. This is kind of like a constant loop across these different work streams. These run in parallel, so there's basically minimal to no wasted time across the team we do have. Every time there's significant milestones done, we're going to measure. We're going to iterate on this, see that what we thought was going to create impact did in fact make impact. If that didn't happen, we need to review why that didn't happen, and we can improve this iteration, this process for the future. What do we use for this? I got some questions about, what kind of tools do you guys use? How do you make this super efficient? I'm not going to say that there's a lot of secret sauce around this. This is kind of the similar tools that a lot of us use. And not uncommonly, we do have some forks of some of these. We have an in-house fork of Hot Tasking Manager. Some of those features have gone back into mainline, I believe. Priority data sets and task data sets got in there. And the associated JOSM plugin we use for that. We are a JOSM house. Sorry, ID fans. One example of something that come up as we're dealing with these road projects, we added support into Hot Tasking Manager and via our JOSM plugin to support Overpass. The typical scenario, you load up your little task grid, and if it's too big, the OSM API is going to just kind of slap your wrist and say, no, too big. If you're dealing with large highway networks, sometimes you just really want to load in miles and miles of stuff at once, just so you can zoom into what you actually need and not be wasted by different grids. So in this case, this little Overpass script is pulling in, I think, the whole highway network for California. So that speeds us up. We try to push these things back into the mainline branches when and as appropriate. If you guys want to chat about that, hit me up outside of the talk, and I'm happy to discuss all sorts of schemes around that. Next up, what's this data? What is this data we talk about that we compare against and all that? There's a variety. In terms of editing, we definitely use all of our aerial. much like everybody else jumps into. We use our street side. We definitely love our friends over Mapillary and OpenStreetCam because, in the remote scenario, this is about as close as we can get to being on the ground. And then the other good stuff, or hopefully you guys don't shake your heads too much, is open government data sets. Now, government data sets, potentially have some strings attached, or they are available, but are they open or are they compatible with OSM? And that's always kind of an open question. And we like to be transparent, we like to be compliant, and we like to, not piss people off when we can. So what we have been doing is outreach. This is still slow burning, but I wanted to kind of take this advantage to kind of announce it and make it available for you guys. We are reaching out to various cities, counties, states, federal levels, explaining what our scenarios are, how we intend to use the data. If they don't know about OSM, basically a not too long, but long enough template to cover what's going on, why they should care, and why they should provide some sign off to this. So here is a very early coverage map of some of the cities and some of the states, the greens being people who answered us and said, yeah, this sounds great, go do that. And I think there was one, I forget if it was a county, there was one place that said no, and that's unfortunate. We'll probably try to re-explain it later when somebody else has taken that job. But that's fine, that's fair, that's their right to do that. But that's great for us. What about you guys? This is HOTTM US, so we have, I think as of late last night, thrown this on our GitHub. So links there, it's gonna be on the last slide, and we're gonna continue kind of updating this. I think props to, Telenav started this kind of process, so we wanted to keep that going. And if you guys have feedback, this is very early, we're just kind of previewing this out now. Please send feedback. And otherwise, I hope that is useful to people in the constant efforts and the monumental challenge we face getting OSM done, right? All right, one more thing, because we need one more thing, because this is still hard. And if there is one thing we know about government data, particularly government data in OSM, is that there are some problems with that. We got a wonderful little bootstrap with some tiger roads. But we need to turn it up. We need little tricks because there's lots of little problems. I went to the first tiger cleanup job on Map Roulette. This isn't even really that bad. It's really just the first one I clicked on. But there are roads here that don't exist. There are existing roads that aren't mapped. And there are, ugly shifts that, again, if our users are trying to use this, or anybody's users are trying to use this, there's an expectation that what is mapped is what is on the ground. So hot on the heels of all of our work on buildings, I do also manage our computer vision and AI teams. We've started, and this is still early, I want to make it clear this is early, but we have started trying to dig up all the roads. So in the same spot, this is some of our extractions in kind of an end-to-end segmentation to geometry match. So as this scales up, as we get the quality up to the point where we think it's worth your guys' time or the community's time to start looking at, it's in our interest to both help all the missing roads, all of the shifted roads, match them across, and kind of bootstrap and accelerate any efforts that can be done to get OSM in the US to a highly usable and, as we would call it, a production-ready status. It's over. I have the wiki there. If there are other government representatives or other organizations that want to share stuff, Open Maps at Microsoft is a great place to hit us up. We do, in fact, check that. Do you guys have questions? This is so easy. I thought you guys were gonna. Hey, what's up, RT? Yeah, yell it and I'll re-say it.
This is actually going back to the previous talk where so this is an iterative process, right? This conflation. Like each time you improve on it, I'm thinking there's going to be lots of regressions as well. Like you make something better and then something else gets worse.
In terms of the conflation?
Yeah, in terms of the conflation. So is that something that actually exists, or is that something
It's something that's always possible. So I think the question is, as you iterate on the like a conflation algorithm, this way to like match and compare data sets, that as you tweak it, you create, like, you might fix new things, but you've broken old things that used to work, which is entirely possible. The general approach to try and avoid this is around both large and constantly increasing measurement sets. So if you have certain test cases, it's basically test cases, right? These two things should match or they should not match. And you want to expand that set and have it representative both across a lot of random situations, a lot of random geographies, as many different angles and slices you can approach the problem. You basically want to capture those. And as you do those tweaks, you're adding new tests because you know this problem is a problem that it's not matching. You incorporate that. That is now a new test that you tweak and you work until that's fixed, while making sure that nothing else broke either. Does that address the?
I understand. Well, I guess what I'm also after is like every data set you conflate with has its own unique footprint in terms of how geometries can be modeled. So I'm thinking like even between different data sets that you try and conflate, different sets of problems appear. Is that not something that you
It is a thing because everybody will. I think modeling is the root cause of most of this. I'm going to say it's either modeling or resolution, right? If somebody is mapping inaccurately or at a different resolution, that's going to introduce all of its own problems. So as we go through this, those kinds of test sets, those kinds of measurements need to account for that because that's the problem we're trying to solve. If you're trying to match and conflate two nearly identical data sets, it's relatively easy by comparison. I'm not saying that's easy because conflation is still really hard. But yeah, our target scenario is in fact rather different data sets that, you're dealing with those, single geometry versus two completely different geometries for two ways. That's what we see all the time. I think we're cut on time.